This video is the second of the wall section videos, and it's to pick up where we left off with the first one. We created a full wall section with no openings. Now we're going to add the openings to the wall section. So if this is going to be a door opening, the first thing I'm going to do is make adjustments here at the bottom. We're not going to see a shoe plate if we're slicing through a door. Instead, what we're going to see here is a combination of a wood sub-sill or threshold, and then a aluminum threshold or adjustable threshold that would be placed on top of it. So this can really be drawn by eye, and I'm going to just use the P-line command and track from this top finished floor line down 1/4 of an inch, and kind of have this line stick out past your sheathing, and then come down a little bit past the edge of the joist header, come back, and then follow the line of the follow the line of the joist header and the top of the joist all the way back. Alright, now from here I'm going to create a construction line 1/2 inch up, and that should represent where the top of our aluminum threshold is. And you're just going to kind of draw this part of it in freehand as well. And it's okay if it doesn't come out exactly the way that it's done in the book, as long as you're kind of representing those two pieces, that there's those two pieces there. So a threshold has a slight slope here at the front so that you don't scuff your shoes on them. So we're just going to extend that over, and then I'm going to do the same thing here on the outside, and I'm just going to show kind of a shim underneath this. So if we go across from here, this would be where the threshold is, and there would be a shim here. And you can make adjustments to this piece of wood supposedly that we have on the bottom, and so I'm just going to draw a line from here to here that's going to represent that there's something supporting or underneath this threshold that's filling in that space. That should be good enough. So now what we're going to do is go to the top here and put in some trim that's going to actually you have to put in the header and put in some trim around that header to show how the door would be framed in here. So on the first floor I think we needed to use 2x12s, so I'm going to insert an X-lum, track from here all the way down 11.25. Oops, that didn't seem to work. Let's try that again. I'm going to track down 11.25. There we go. Now you can select the object and put in a 2x12. We should have 3 of these going across, so I'm going to copy this over from here to here, and then copy a second one so that the midpoint of this and the midpoint of the top plate are matching, and this area here and here would be filled in with a 1/2 inch sheathing. Now I'm going to put in a couple more pieces of X lumber that will be 1x4. We'll move this out to here, and we'll just copy that same 1x4 to the other side. And then in here we're going to insert another piece, and that's going to be, let's try a 1x8. Now I might have done this a little bit differently than I did in class, and that's fine. So there's the frame for the door, because it really should, this part of the sheathing and the gypsum wallboard would be covered by the trim, the inside trim or the casing for the door. All right, now these two lines here and here don't make any sense anymore, because we wouldn't be able to see those from this section. So we're going to take those two lines and trim them to the edge of this block. So those disappear completely. In place of those lines are going to be the lines for the edge of the trim beyond, And you want to make sure that this line is going straight. And then we would also see another piece of wood here that's going to be representing the jamb of the door. So I'm going to use a 1x2, rotate that, and you can just put that anywhere you want within the door frame, as long as the door is showing up so that it opens to the inside of the house. Now that door jamb goes all along the edge of the door, the three sides of the door, the top and the two sides, so we would see those lines beyond as well. And I want to make sure that I'm snapping as straight as possible. There we go. Okay. Now these three lines here should be on the detail 1 layer, so I'm just going to grab all of them and put them on the detail 1 layer because we're seeing those beyond. And we're going to represent the door itself in section now, so I'm just going to create off to the side a rectangle at 1.5 inches in the X direction by 6 feet 8 inches in the Y. I'm going to move that so that the edge is tucked up into the edge of the jamb, and then take a look at the bottom. See how there's quite a bit of space here. And when you look at the door, it would actually have a little bit of space above it. So I'm going to move that down 1/4 inch and move it away from the jamb 1/8 inch. And then at the bottom, I would just draw a little piece of weather stripping, representing it with an arc. So I just used the arc command and just drew that line in there. And then to make this even clearer, we can switch to the detail 1 layer, use the B hatch command, and let's hatch the inside of the door so we see it in section. And I'm going to change the scale to about a 4. Do a preview. That looks about right. So now you can see the door in section on the bottom. So don't worry too much about getting this exactly right. As long as you have some kind of representation of the aluminum threshold and then the wood threshold below, you're going to be fine. Now at the top, we're going to show the window in section. So I'm going to copy this same configuration here up, but I need to do that after I've established my my header. So I'm going to put in my 2 header pieces, and I'm going to use 2x6s. So I'm going to track down from there 5.5 and put in a 2x6 on either side. Now I'm just going to go to the bottom here and copy those pieces using this point right here as a reference point, or this point. It doesn't make any difference as long as you're using the same point. You use the same point up above, and more or less the same framing is happening for a window for a door. Now we want to create the sub-sill down here, so using the line command, I'm going to create a construction line here right at the bottom of the head and offset that 4 feet. And then I can copy the 2 double top plates from the top of the top plate down so that it lines up with that construction line we created. And now that's the sub-sill. It's at exactly 4 feet below the header, which is, I told you guys to use that as a rough opening. On top of this, we'd have something similar to this, but it would be shaped a little bit differently. So there's another example of where we're going to have to freeform this. So I'm going to draw a line from here out a little bit past the edge of the framing or trim that we're going to eventually put around the window. Go up 3/4 inch back, and then I'm going to start sloping this down so it goes out past the trim that we have on the outside, down so it matches the height of the stool, and then back to the beginning. So we're sloping out and away from the house on the outside, and on the inside this is just a flat surface, the sill of the window. And you can make adjustments to where this point starts to slope down so that you have enough room to put your 2 sashes. Right now from here to here is where we want to trim these lines to. So I'm going to use the trim command, and we really don't want to see those lines past this point here for the gypsum wallboard and the sheathing. So I've just trimmed that to underneath the stool. These lines, however, should remain because those lines are representing the trim of the window beyond. So get rid of these because they wouldn't be able to see those through that piece of wood. But they should stop here. So we're going to use the trim command again and trim those to here. Now below here should be the same trim pieces. So I'm going to grab these two and put them down below. And now I just need to draw the sash of the window. So I'm going to find the midpoint of the window here. That's just going to help me to draw this out properly. And if I offset that line up 3/4 of an inch and down 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to use a 1.5 inch block for the sash of the window. So we're going to create a rectangle. Let's do a distance here from here to here to find out how tall the bottom sash is going to be, 2 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to create a rectangle from here at -1.5 comma -2 feet dash 0 dash 3/8 of an inch. And that should make that exactly the right size. You can get rid of these construction lines. And I basically want another line like this one down below, so I'm just going to mirror it. And then draw a single line to indicate the glazing. Now, it's very unusual to have the sash be this close to the edge of the trim, so I'm just going to move that back to about here. And then we should see, actually we should have that moved in front a little bit more. And then we should see the same exact sash, but on the back of the window, so that these 2 points overlap, and then it should end up hitting the line. Well, it doesn't hit it quite right because I used this line as a midpoint, so I'm just going to make a little adjustment and move that down to here. I'll show you how I did that. I used the stretch command S. Then using a crossing window, so you want to make sure you get this type of window. I want to grab all those lines there. And then I typed in R for remove to remove this and this because I don't want to stretch that. Enter. And I can pick this point and stretch it down to that point. And there's our window in section.